There was a time I thought silence was weakness, until I saw it break a man louder than rage ever could. Have you ever stood in a moment so bitter that your soul felt bruised by the words of someone who didn't even know your story? They didn't care how hard your nights have been, how long you've fought your battles quietly, behind smiles and closed doors. They looked at you not to understand, but to diminish, and in that moment every part of you wanted to roar, to tear them down with the same venom they threw at you. But hear me, that is exactly what they want, to make you small, to see your reaction, to know they have power over you. Control is power, not reaction. There's a moment, often too familiar, when someone's words cut deeper than they should. They speak with venom, fueled by ego or ignorance, trying to spark a fire within you, hoping you'll burn with rage and retaliate. It's in those moments the world seems to pause, waiting for your response. And for most, the instinct is to react, to defend, to roar. But real power is not found in the explosion of emotion, it's found in restraint, because the one who controls himself in chaos holds more power than the one who controls others through fear. Reacting is easy. Anyone can shout when they're hurt. Anyone can strike when they feel insulted, but the cost of reaction is high. It robs you of clarity, of dignity, and often of the bigger picture. When you react, you hand over your inner peace to someone who never deserved that much influence in the first place. You become a puppet pulled by the strings of their disrespect. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you choose your response instead of handing it over to your emotions, you reclaim something most people never master: yourself. Control is not weakness. It is the highest demonstration of strength. Imagine standing in a storm and not flinching while others are tossed around by their tempers. That is the essence of control. You aren't denying your feelings. You're understanding them, acknowledging them, and choosing not to let them drive the car off the cliff. It's the difference between reacting like a flame to gasoline or standing like a mountain, still, unmoved, untouchable. It's not easy, but it's noble, and it earns a quiet kind of respect that loudness never will. Think of a person you admire for their strength, not physical, but inner strength. Chances are they're not the type to throw a tantrum or argue over petty insults. They don't waste energy fighting small battles. They conserve their power, channeling it only when it matters. That's because they've learned that reacting to every slight is not strength, it's surrender. The strong don't react to noise. They listen, they observe, and when they move, they do so with intention, not impulse. There's a saying, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. And it's true. When someone is rude or disrespectful, it's often a reflection of their own turmoil. Their disrespect is a cry from their own chaos, not a judgment of your worth. So when you feel the fire rising, remind yourself, this moment does not define me unless I let it. Control is your armor. It protects your peace, your purpose, and your position. You don't need to win a shouting match to prove your value. You prove it in how little noise you need to make to be respected. In fact, nothing leaves a deeper impact on the disrespectful than being met with calm. It unnerves them. They expect resistance. They want a scene. But when they receive silence or a composed response, they are forced to confront their own behavior. They see themselves in contrast to your discipline. And that reflection is often more painful than any insult you could throw back. That is how control makes them regret their actions, without you ever lowering your standards. There's a subtle power in not reacting. It creates mystery, it shifts the dynamic. It puts the person who lashed out under their own spotlight. And in time, people forget the details of arguments, but they never forget how composed you were when you had every reason not to be. That memory becomes part of your reputation, the quiet warrior, the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, and never trades their crown for chaos. And that That is the power of control. Your response is a reflection of you, not them. There will be moments in life when someone's words will hit you like a slap. Not because they're true, but because they were meant to wound. They might twist your intentions, mock your silence, or challenge your worth in front of others. And in that moment, everything inside you will beg to respond. Your pride will urge you to speak louder, strike harder, prove your power. But pause. Not every reaction is power. In fact, most reactions are just emotional echoes of someone else's weakness. How you respond in those moments doesn't reflect who they are, it reflects who you are. We live in a world that teaches us to be quick with our comebacks, to never let anyone disrespect us, to fight fire with fire. But if fire meets fire, everything burns. The wise don't fight to win petty arguments. They respond in a way that honors their values, not their emotion. Because when you react impulsively, you carry their ugliness into your own soul. But when you respond with poise and principle, you protect your identity. You show the world that you are defined not by what happens to you, but by how you rise above it. Every word that leaves your mouth becomes a mirror, not for them, but for you. It reflects your mindset, your self-respect, your emotional discipline. That's why the strongest response often isn't a reaction at all, but a moment of stillness. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy. A composed reply is not weakness, it's restraint. And when you do speak, let your words be guided not by anger, but by clarity. Let your response be so calm, it exposes the chaos in theirs. Because nothing shames ignorance more than dignity. There was a woman once who worked in a corporate setting, quiet, humble, brilliant in her field. One day, a new manager came in, loud, arrogant, eager to establish dominance. He mocked her ideas in meetings, cut her off when she spoke, even questioned her intelligence. Everyone waited for her to snap. But she didn't. She continued to speak with calm confidence, let her work speak louder than her wounds. Months later, upper management took notice, not of his noise, but of her grace. She was promoted, he was transferred. And not once did she lower herself to his level. Her response wasn't revenge, it was elevation. That's what most don't understand. Your reaction can cost you your peace, your reputation, your opportunities. Every time you respond in a way that's out of alignment with your true self, you hand your power to the one who disrespected you. But when you stay rooted in who you are, calm, measured, focused, they lose access to you. They can throw their insults into the wind, but the storm never reaches your core. You show them, without saying it, that they are no threat to your peace, and in that silence they often hear their own smallness echo louder than ever. People will forget the insult. They'll forget what was said, but they will remember your composure. They will remember that you held yourself like someone who didn't need to prove anything, that you chose to be better instead of bitter, that you answered disrespect not with defensiveness, but with discipline. That's the kind of strength that cannot be faked. The kind that walks into every room with quiet authority, the kind that doesn't bark to be heard, but commands attention simply by being unmoved. You are not what people say to you. You are not even what they think of you. You are what you choose to reflect back into the world. If they're rude, and you're rude in return, the only thing anyone sees is two fools fighting. But if they are cruel and you remain calm, the contrast becomes undeniable. It reveals the truth. It tells the world, that person is still at war with themselves, but I have already made peace with who I am. That's not arrogance, that's self-respect. The next time someone tries to get under your skin, remember, your response is not for them, it's for you. It's a decision, a declaration, a quiet act of self-mastery. Anyone can respond in anger, anyone can spit fire, but not everyone can look into the eyes of disrespect and still choose to stand tall, steady, and untouchable. Let your response reflect your values, not your wounds. Let it say, I know who I am, and you don't have the power to change that. Respect is earned in silence, not noise. There's a sacred kind of respect that doesn't come from titles, loud speeches, or grand gestures. It comes from presence. The kind of presence that doesn't need to fill the room with noise to be felt. The kind that doesn't chase validation or demand recognition. It simply exists, and in that stillness, it commands more reverence than any shout ever could. People may not remember your words, but they will remember how it felt to be in your presence. And often, it's the silent ones who leave the loudest impression. Noise is easy. Anyone can raise their voice, argue their point, or broadcast their pain. But silence? Real, intentional silence? That requires discipline. That requires knowing your worth so deeply that you don't feel the need to explain it to anyone. When someone disrespects you, the world expects you to fight back, to match their energy, to put them in their place. But Stoic silence puts them in their place without you saying a single word. It's not about fear, it's not about retreat. It's about standing so firmly in your self-respect that their disrespect simply bounces off. True power never shouts. It doesn't rush to defend itself. It doesn't try to prove what is already known. Look at nature. Thunder is loud, but it's the silent mountains that stand unmoved for centuries. In life, those who need to scream for attention are often the most insecure. But the ones who sit in quiet confidence, they are the ones people instinctively look to in moments of crisis. Not because they speak often, but because when they do, it matters. Their silence isn't empty. It's full of restraint, wisdom, and presence. There was a man who worked his way up from nothing. Every room he walked into, people would underestimate him. He didn't dress loud, didn't speak often, and never boasted about his knowledge. In meetings, others would interrupt him, challenge him, or ignore his contributions. But he never reacted. He never raised his voice. Instead, he observed, he listened, and when the moment came to speak, he delivered his thoughts with clarity and calm that silenced the entire room. Over time, people began to lean in when he spoke, because they knew if he broke his silence, it meant something important was coming. Respect built on noise is fragile. It depends on constant performance, constant reminders, constant validation. But respect built in silence is unshakable. It's earned slowly, quietly, and it cannot be taken away by rumors, opinions, or disrespect. That's the kind of respect that stays with people long after you've left the room. It lingers, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. And the truth is, the world watches more closely when you're not trying to be seen. It listens more deeply when you're not trying to be heard. There's a certain strength in not reacting when provoked. In choosing silence when you could choose drama. In choosing dignity when you could choose ego. It creates a contrast that speaks louder than any insult or comeback ever could. When someone disrespects you, and you don't react, you rise above the level they tried to drag you to. You expose their weakness not with retaliation but with restraint. That silence becomes a mirror, and they are forced to see themselves more clearly than your words ever could show them. People admire what they cannot shake. They respect what they cannot provoke. That's why silence, used wisely, is more commanding than volume. It holds weight. It forces others to question themselves. They begin to wonder why you didn't react, why you didn't fight, why you didn't need to explain. And in that wondering, they find their own smallness. They realize your silence wasn't passive. It was powerful. It was chosen. And chosen silence always speaks louder than forced noise. In life, you will be tested, not by grand events, but by small, sharp moments where someone tries to shake your peace. When disrespect is thrown at you, remember, how you choose to respond reveals everything about your inner world. Reaction is easy, but control is power. Let your silence speak volumes. Let your calm unsettle those who expect chaos. When someone disrespects you, your response does not need to be loud. It needs to be anchored in dignity, in self-respect, in clarity. Your strength is not in how loudly you defend yourself, but in how gracefully you rise above. The ones who move through storms without flinching are the ones we never forget. Speak only when it adds value. Stay silent when it protects your peace. And when you do respond, let it reflect the depth of who you are, not the weight of their words. You owe no one your energy. Preserve it for your growth, your purpose, your path. There is immense power in walking away with your head held high and your heart untouched. Thank you for listening. May you walk with strength, speak with wisdom, and never forget the quiet power within you. God bless you.